Hey guys, okay, so today we are going to learn about an ancient art form that came from Japan. It's called suminagashi. It's a type of Japanese marbling technique, okay? So you're going to make papers like this. Pretty cool. So I've cut you 7 by 9-inch pieces of paper. Now, my kids loved it so much. They made these. I see faces and cool things in these. So when you're done making yours, study it for a little bit and see if you can find hidden pictures. Okay, it's kind of like when we've done Jackson Pollock last year and you find hidden pictures in it all later on. I just think it's so much fun. Anyway, so suminagashi is the art of floating ink on top of water. So I have a foil food tray here. I have about 2 inches of water in it, maybe a little less. And I'm going to float this ink, which is not paint, it is ink, right here. I have about 5 drops of color in each little egg carton hole. And I'm going to float that ink on top of the water. Now, nothing's been done to this water. Because this is suminagashi, you don't have to do anything to the water. The ink is light enough that it'll float right on top, which is pretty cool. So suminagashi started in about the 12th century, and it was the art of making marbled paper. So they could take plain paper, and rather than using paint, they could float the ink on the top. They could blow on it or fan the water, because when air hits the water, you know, it's going to wiggle and move. So the inks will wiggle and move with the current, and they could get these awesome marbled effects. So they did this. Then it became very popular in the Japanese royal court. The colors they used the most were indigo blue and black. And they would make concentric circles. So they would dip into their paint and then, or their ink, and dip it straight on top of the water. You don't want to push through the water because the ink will sink straight to the bottom. But if you just touch the very top of the water, you'll see the ink start to spread out. That's what you want to do. So they would use blue and they would use black, and they would just keep making concentric circles, kind of like when you look at a tree and you cross-cut the tree and you can see all the rings. It kind of does that sort of effect. So they would do that, and they'd maybe do them from the sides and wherever, and they'd blow it all and make it go together. Now, because we don't have a ton of time and we don't have a ton of supplies and we don't have a giant basin, they would make huge pictures. We're going to do a few circles at one time, okay? So this started in 12th century, and then during the 15th century, another type of marbling from Turkey and Persia came about. It's called Ebru painting. Now, Ebru painting is a similar concept, but they can take their oil or gouache paints that they use rather than this lightweight ink. So their oil or gouache is a bit heavier. And the problem with it was that it would sink straight to the bottom of the water, and it would not sit on top like this suminagashi style does from the 12th century. So in the 15th century, they found that if they could put something in the water to make it thicken up, then the oil or gouache would sit on top of the water. So that's what they did. They found something called sizing. They put it in the water, and they did the gouache or the ink, or the gouache or the oil, and it sat right on top. The nice thing about Ebru painting is that those artists have a lot more control over what's going on. So they can make hearts, they can make flowers, they can purposefully make scalloped prints. With suminagashi, it's much more organic and abstract like this. I don't really have a lot of control, because once you get the water moving, it's going, because it's so thin. But with Ebru, they could take and get their oil or gouache on their brush, and they could bounce it off their finger and kind of do splatters, like when you guys have really fun doing splatter painting. They could do that, and the ink will splotch all over, and then or the gouache and oil would. And then they could take a comb and comb through it and make really cool designs. So it's a similar technique of marbling, but it's just a little bit different, and it came about in the 15th century. And after that, in the 17th century, Europe had caught on to marbling, and they used it for bookbinding. So bookbinders would make books, and for the covers or pages within the books, they would put marbled papers in there. So England, France, Germany, Holland, Italy, they all produced marbled papers. The cool thing about this is that it was a big, big secret, and not a lot of people really knew exactly how to do it or all the tricks to it. So in 1853, which was a good thing for artists because you don't want to give all your tricks away if you want to make some money on it, right? Because then anybody can do it, so they say. But we've learned that not everything's as easy as we think it is, right? So in 1853, there was an English marble master who decided to reveal all the secrets and wrote a book called The Art of Marbling, sharing all the secrets that he knew of how to marble. And a lot of artists got really mad because he gave away the secrets. Now, it did make it so that we can know the secrets, and now we get to do the art ourselves, and other people got to do it. So it was kind of a good thing in that it allowed other people to know what to do, but it was kind of a bummer for the artists who were trying to make some money on it. And eventually, bookbinders became replaced by machinery, and the art pretty much died off. So that's kind of a bummer. But we're going to learn it today, 12th century Suminagashi art, and we're going to float this ink on top of the water. So the first few are going to be kind of hard to see. I chose blue to start, and I'm just going to touch the top of the water. I don't know if you could see that, but in a minute, you'll see a little bit of it because the colors will all start to show up a lot better against each other instead of clear. So the longer I hold my brush on top of the water, the better or bigger the circles become. If I want small circles, just barely tap it. If you want bigger circles, hold it on a little longer. Now, there's only about 5 drops of paint or of ink in each of these little circles over here. You don't need a lot of this. It goes very far. So I'm trying to find the centers of those first blue circles I made, and I'm adding red. And then I'm going to rinse my brush and I'm going to dry it. I have these paper towels next to me, so I'm drying it on paper towels so that I don't get all the ink in these little cups dirty and disgusting for my friend, just like when we paint, because we're all sharing, remember? And we don't need a lot, but before I dip back into my inks, I just kind of wash my brush off a little bit on my paper towel. So I can find other spots. I don't have to just do those 3 spots. I found a few other spots where I wanted yellow. Now I've got what? Blue, yellow, red. I'm going to do a little orange in the middle of these. Now you can start to see it a little bit better with that orange is really starting to show up. Dry it off a little bit. Just so I'm not adding a bunch of water into my color over here. I'm keeping it pretty pure, which is what we want to do. So now I have my oranges in there, and maybe what I want to try is some soapy water. So right here I have Boston's really awesome pottery that he made in ceramics class, and I've just filled it with soapy water. And you can't use regular water because it won't work, because if it did work, then this whole thing would just be a giant mess right now because it'd be soapy water. But if you use soapy water, watch what's going to happen. The second I touch it in the middle of these circles, it goes out, just like it does with the color and the inks, but this makes a clear circle. So you can get a clear spot. Now I'm going to dip in maybe with a little green in the middle of that soapy spot. What I found is that with the soapy bit, once you do the soapy bit, the colors don't seem to flow quite as quick or as easily as they did before soap. So if you don't want to use soapy water, which when I did it with the kids last night and the day before and whatever, we didn't use soapy water. But it is kind of fun if you want clear bits. You totally don't have to do that. You'll have plenty of clear going on. So now, as you can see, my orange doesn't spread quite as quick as it used to, and I probably need a little bit more of it than I would if I didn't use the soapy water. So you can make your own choice. It's kind of fun. I don't think it's really that necessary, and I do think it uses up a lot more ink than we really need to use. But I washed my brush, and I'm going to try maybe one more round of blue. Now, I have black in there for you guys. I just chose not to use black, and I'll tell you why. It does look really cool sometimes, but it also sometimes bleeds a lot. So the color kind of gets fuzzy-wuzzy at the end. Sometimes, not all the time, but sometimes it does, and it kind of makes everything have a little bit of a gray tint to it. It's your choice. I didn't mind it. It was okay, but I just chose not to use it on this one so you can see a little bit more pure color. Now, I have a big blue spot right here. I know it's not the center of a circle, but I can always make another little bit over here, right? If I want, I can add some fun little yellow spots to other places. It doesn't have to be in the concentric circle, or it can be. It's totally up to you. Now, if I wanted, that looks pretty rad. If I wanted, I could print this just as it is without blowing on it and making it more marbled. I could just print it as it is if I wanted, and you can do that too. It's totally up to you, but I want to show you how to marble it. So I'm going to show a little bit of a marbling technique now. Check that out. The red still works really well. The red always seems to go really well. I'm not exactly sure why the red does better than every other color on spreading, but it does. So that's a lot of color, and that is really fun. I'm going to do just a couple spots, because I think that red is really big, of soapy water, just to kind of break it up a little bit. Not all of them, just a few. And maybe one right there. Okay, so now, this would make a really cool print, just as it is. But because I want to teach you how to marble it, and because straws are fun, I'm going to blow on this straw. And I'm not going to blow hard, because a little bit of movement is all you want. If you blow hard, you're going to mush it all together, and it's going to be kind of probably not what you're looking for. So I'm just going to blow through my straw for a minute. Can you see it starting to move and swirl? Yeah, you can see that. That's cool. Okay, that's pretty awesome. This might be my favorite one so far. Now, I can't get to the other side of my desk, so I'm going to use a toothpick, and I'm just going to drag a few swirly lines towards me so I can get some more color coming this way since I blew some of it that way. You don't have to do this. You can do whatever you choose, but I want you to see some marbling. So I'm waiting. I'm just watching it kind of move, and it's really cool that it just sits right there on the surface. Now I have my 7x9 piece of drawing paper. It's about 80 pounds. Less than 80 pound does not work very well. So the weight of this paper is 80-pound paper. I'm going to bow it a little bit. I'm going to set it on this water. And right when it makes contact, I'm going to set the other two sides down. Now, I don't want to submerge this paper. I don't want to get the top of the paper wet. If a little bit happens, fine, no big deal. But what I want to do is kind of tap out gently, like so gently, tap out the air bubbles. You'll start to see that the water turns kind of gray. It's just the water absorbing. But you can also start to see that that marbling is sticking to the paper. Now, if I pull it up right away, it's still a little too wet and it just runs down the page. It still sticks, but you get a little bit of cloudiness. So if I let it sit there for, I don't know, maybe 15, 30 seconds, not too long, just a few seconds, now I see that there's no more white showing on my paper. It's gray. That means that it's all stuck. Okay, so I have paper towels off on the side. I'm going to move it over there real quick, then I'll pick it up and show it to you, okay? So I grab the edge, and towards me I pull it straight up. Oh my gosh, it's awesome. It's so cool. You guys don't need to really dry it off because you have time to let it sit there while your friends take their turn. I'm going to dry it off just so you guys can see what we've created because I don't have time. I want you guys to start creating your own suminagashi marbled paper. Okay, check this out, you guys. How fun is that? Isn't that awesome? I love it. I could make this all day long. I shouldn't, but I might. It's really, really fun. So they all come out totally different. Now, the thing is, at the end, there's still a little bit of a film on there, and you don't want that for your friends. So we'll either have paper towels or some newsprint, and we'll just kind of set it on one side. You can see that there's still color in there because it's coming onto the paper towel. And you'll just kind of pull off all of the excess color that's on the top. See, my towel has all the ink on it. And we'll just have a little bucket. You can throw away the paper towel or the newsprint. And you just want to make sure that all the ink from your artwork is not going to end up on your friends. However, If your friend wants your project to end up on their project, you can just do it straight over the top. It does get a little cloudier and a little more cluttered, I'd say, but that's how you can do it if you would like. So that's your lesson, 12th century Suminagashi Japanese floating ink on top of the water to create marbled paper lesson. So check out Ebru painting, which came from Turkey, and they make giant pieces like the size of rugs, you guys. They're incredible. So there's Ebru, which came from Turkey and Persia. Then there's Suminagashi, which came from Japan. And this is centuries old, you guys. It's so much fun. I hope you enjoy it, and I hope you guys watch your friends do theirs. So if you're not first, since you guys are working in groups of like 4 or 5, if you're not first, watch the techniques that they do so you can learn what works and what doesn't work. And if you're first, be brave and go out there and do it and just have tons of fun, okay? Have a good time, you guys.